Welcome, everybody, to the Internal Compass podcast, the podcast where I empower you to live a pain-free life and to be aligned from inside out. I am Samuel Archambault. I am your host. I am an osteopath and a kinesiologist, and today is the first episode ever. So hang on tight. We have a lot to cover today, and the goal of today's episode, actually, there are two goals. So the first goal is to explain to you how this podcast is going to work. And also, the second goal is to explain to you and teach you a little bit more about the biopsychosocial model of pain. So that's a mouthful. Basically, what that model says is that it takes in consideration the biology, the psychology, and the sociology. So how we interact with other people. All of those factors are considered when it comes to pain management. So first of all, let's talk about this podcast. Why did I decide to start this podcast in the first place? So if you haven't heard of me yet, I am practicing in the Turku region. Basically, most of my clients come to me because they have some kind of a pain issue. Low back pain, neck pain, any type of pain, basically. And what we do together is that we assess where does the pain come from, and then we work from that, from strategies to strategies, and we try to find something that works and that stick. So I do mostly manual therapy, but of course I work a lot with lifestyle changes as well as behavior changes. And I've noticed that over the months, I've been practicing now in Turku for perhaps 9 months, almost a year, that one thing that I'm missing when I am one-to-one with my clients are basically background stuff. What I mean by that is that pain is a very complicated thing, as you might know. So if you are experiencing pain right now, you must know this. Every pain is unique. And in that sense, we need to address it in a unique way. That's why I strongly believe into one-to-one consultation, because in that way, it's the real way, it's the only way that you can really address your specific pain. There are many programs out there which are probably great. My goal with this podcast is to try to teach you, share with you information, and also open your eyes on other things that might impact your health. And I will not pretend that what I say on this podcast is going to be the golden rule about pain, but my goal with this podcast is that perhaps you might take away from one of the episodes one tool that really works for you. And that's the secret, is that all of the tools that I'm going to share with you, they are tools that are available. It doesn't mean all of the tools are going to work for everybody. And that's the goal of this podcast. And it's called Internal Compass because, first of all, the name of my company is called Internal Compass. But not only that, it's also called Internal Compass because I strongly believe that if we can follow this internal compass inside of us, if we can be aligned with truly who we are, then most of the time we become aligned physically, meaning we have a little bit more balance, we have a little bit more solidity in our body, and thus we can feel less pain, or basically we can manage better the pain. So that's my reasoning behind the name of my podcast, the name of my company. I believe that the brain, the mind, the soul, the body, all of those things are connected together. And when it comes to pain management and when it comes to living a healthier life, it should be reflected this way. The strategies that we use to deal with pain and that I use personally to treat my clients that come, I like to use every single component, ask questions, to dig deep. And as the sessions go by, to try to connect the dots on like, okay, how does that impact you? How does that specific reality for you impacts your level of pain? So now you know a little bit more about the reasoning behind the podcast, and hopefully you know what to expect. This podcast is for two types of people. First type of people is for people that are very interested into pain management. Maybe you are someone who's been living some chronic pain, who's living some pain right now and you don't know how to manage it. This is for you only if you are very curious and that you want to get involved in the process, because surprise, surprise, the body, the mind, and the spirit. It's not something you can just go to the garage with. Someone has it fixed for you, and then that's it. It doesn't work this way. And I want to share this up front, that what I'm teaching you here in this podcast, there are tools that can be utilized, but for that to be utilized, you need to put them in motion. And I strongly believe that when it comes to pain management, or when it comes to health in general, if the person itself is not taking charge of his own health, of his own recovery, it's not going to stick. Because the moment I'm gone, right, the clients that come to me, I give them a manual therapy treatment and then they go away. The moment I'm gone, well, what happens? Out of a sudden, their pain is going to come back and then there's nothing they can do. No, the goal is for them to be their own therapist at some point, right? If that makes sense. Of course, they can't do the techniques on themselves, but still they can learn, they can apply many strategies, many tools, many new behaviors that are going to help them in the long run. So this podcast is for people that are interested, curious, and that want to get involved into their healing process, right? And the second type of people are also health professional. I believe that if you are someone who is working in the field right now, I think you're going to benefit a lot from this podcast, because those might be tools that you want to try with specific clients of yours, right? Whether you are a personal trainer, whether you are a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, or even a psychologist, I still believe that all of those different components of pain are interconnected. So perhaps you might use one of the tools that you hear here that might be beneficial for one or some of your clients. So on other terms, in terms of logistics, this podcast is going to be available every 2 weeks, okay? So every 2 weeks, you'll see an episode coming out. Those episodes are going to be available on YouTube. So if you're not following me right now on YouTube, I will put all the notes in the show notes. So the links to my YouTube channel is going to be there. And also, if you're not following me on social media, I strongly invite you to do so, because I post also other type of content there, shorter forms. So you can also follow me there. I'm mostly active on Instagram. So Instagram, YouTube, and then also I have my newsletter that I also strongly recommend you to join in, because you'll be up to date of all of the different events and deals and stuff going on for me. So for that, there is a link in my bio in Instagram, and I will also put the link in the show notes for today's episode, for the first episode. So that's it. That's overall what the podcast is going to be about. In other terms, now that we've discussed a little bit more logistics, let's talk about the basic, right? As I'm recording this, I'm going to be publishing 3 episodes when this is going to come out, which is going to be at the beginning of September 2024. So if you're just arriving now to my channel, well, welcome. And you can start with those 3 episodes, because those 3 episodes are really going to lay down the foundation for what we are going to discuss further, okay? So I like to base my sayings on some charts or some type of diagram that you will be able to refer to later. So every one of new episodes that will come out every 2 weeks, you will be able to connect them with that kind of a ground layer, with that kind of a base layer of understanding about pain management. And don't worry, my goal is not to teach you about very deep neurophysiological link about pain, although I think this is really interesting and I always geek out about that. I also believe that if you understand better your pain, then you might react to it and you might heal it better, because then if you understand it better, then I think that you can address it. So laying the foundation is really important, because it just gives you a basic understanding of like, okay, this is how it works basically. And this is how we are right now in terms of science, okay? So the science right now is really putting up front this biopsychosocial model that I've been talking about, okay? It's been time for some years, right? It did not appear like in the last 2 to 3 years, but this model has been there for probably decades, but it's becoming more and more prevalent, more and more upfront. And the reason for that is that the more and more we treat people, and now I'm not only talking about people that we treat with our hands, like physiotherapist or myself or osteopath, people we treat pain with in terms of doctors, nurses, because pain is very general, right? Pain's management goes to taking a pill, to resting, to manual therapy, to meditation. There are all kind of ways to treat pain. But more and more we go forward, the more and more I believe right now health professionals understand that actually dealing with pain is not only one thing. You can't just target one thing into a silo and expect the person to feel better. There are other things at play that we don't really know how it impacts yet. And that's the beauty of it, because that means that we can really improve ourselves into that matter. That means as a healthcare professional, we can really get better and start doing some experiment of like, okay, what are the different links? So I'm going to explain to you this model in terms of different bubbles. So if you picture yourself, pain being in the middle, let's say, of those different bubbles, and then you have links, all different links to that same bubble. So when we talk about pain management, the different bubbles that will impact, or let's say that will affect how your pain is being perceived in your body, there is going to be physical health. There is going to be social health, so how we connect human to human, and also the connection with ourselves. There is the emotional or psychological, I put it into the same kind of bucket or into the same bubble, but how we regulate our emotions and how we regulate our psychology, our thoughts. This is also another key component. Our nutrition, our stress level, the level of light that gets into our eyes and different type of light, and the last one being sleep. You also notice that all of those different bubbles, they can also apply to everything related to health, basically. If you take like, what is it to be healthy? Well, you want to eat well, you want to sleep well, you want to have good light in your eyes at the right time, you want to move your body, you want to have great social connections, you want to be really comfortable and healed with your own thoughts and emotion, and that's it, right? It's the same thing. Well, guess what? It also applies, I believe, to health. It also applies to pain. That's what I want to say, because pain is how I see it. Pain is a message, and that's a message that I will keep pushing forward over and over in all of my episodes to change your belief around pain, because pain is really a message, meaning pain is telling you something. Your body and your mind is telling you something, because yes, right? Pain is being felt as something in the body. My lower back pain, right? I have lower back pain. This hurts. You can feel it in your body, but you can also feel it in your mind. Like, I'm sad. This hurts. Do you notice that whenever you're sad or you're angry, you're going to also live it in your body? Those things are connected. This is the best example ever to make you understand that how you feel, what you think, and how you perceived in your body, the physical sensations, all of those things are connected together. So why should we try to approach those things one piece at a time? It doesn't make any sense. So that's why this podcast might sound overwhelming at first, like, wow, I need to take care of all of those things. Okay, wait a minute. We can explore them one at a time. And then eventually we can start to connect the dot of meaning like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I noticed that now that I know a bit more about nutrition and how to maybe limit the inflammatory foods that create some kind of reaction for me, I noticed that I don't have this pain anymore. Oh, wow, what a surprise. Then you'll see that you'll perhaps start linking some of those bubbles together. And you'll notice that all of those different bubbles are actually interconnected. So the goal of this podcast is basically deconstruct every single one of those bubbles and then go line by line or pretty much expand those bubbles into different topics. And I agree with you. This is infinite, right? There are already thousands of podcasts out there talking about nutrition or sleep or workouts, right? But the goal of this podcast is to adapt those different bubbles to how does that affect your pain? Because the better you can understand, and then the better you can address your specific pain for you, right? You're living your own pain, and how you perceive your pain is unique. Nobody else is living it the same way. So again, I don't want you to take everything I say as the truth, the ultimate truth? Of course not. Because guess what? I'm not in your body. I'm not feeling your pain. That would be completely ridiculous of me to try to say, oh yeah, I know exactly how you feel. No, I don't. Even as a therapist, I have treated, I think now, thousands of clients. I still don't know how they feel. If they tell me I have lower back pain, I don't know. I don't have this lower, especially this lower back pain. I don't have all of the beliefs that they have. I haven't been born in the same family. I haven't been living the same experience, maybe the same traumas. So you see all of the unicity of what creates eventually the experience that is pain. With this podcast, I also want to change completely the perception around pain. Again, I keep telling you, it's a message, but also we have to stop looking at pain like if it's something negative. Who said it's negative? Why did pain got associated with negativity? Well, because it hurts. But what if we change that around and say, hey, actually, uh, I'm something, my body or my mind is trying to connect with me. And don't you agree that pain is pretty strong, a pretty strong communicator? If I have pain in my low back and I'm like, maybe I think twice about lifting a heavy weight. Maybe I think, hey, I need to rest a bit more. So it's a very strong communicator. And if we start to see it like this and then asking questions as pain come, well, guess what? We will be much more aware and much more sensitive to what's the message around this. So to conclude today's episode, I want to dive it a little bit more into each of those bubbles so that you can know what to expect when it comes to the following episodes. If we start with the first one, the physical one, of course, on this podcast, it's going to be quite hard to teach you exactly what type of exercise to do in your specific condition. Because again, it's required for me to, example, do some tests with you to see what's the actual problem. That being said, we can still share some tools on general practice of movement that can be beneficial. Very clear example for that is overall, in a very general manner, if you walk more, normally speaking, when in terms of back pain, science shows that it will help your back pain. Now, you understand that there are nuances in this, because if you have so much of a back pain that you can't feel your legs almost and that you're going to lose some force and you're going to fall if you walk, well, now we're talking about an emergency, a medical emergency. So does that apply to you? Of course not. So I rely on you also, who is listening, to apply some judgment on what you're hearing on this podcast. Ask yourself, does that apply to me? It doesn't mean it's good or bad. It just means, is that for you? Yes or no? But I can still share with you what general science says, and perhaps some tools that will be beneficial for you at some point. So we will talk about physical, some type of specific movement that we can do, what works in terms of different approach, that we will discuss as well. So that's for the physical type of bubble. Then we will talk about emotional and psychological. And in this, we will use many different models, such as the CBT one, cognitive behavioral therapy, which I really like, which basically is going to help you adapt to whatever thoughts and emotions comes to you. So hopefully I can teach you some tools to better listen to your emotion and see what's the message, and if those emotions and thoughts are linked to your pain and how we can manage that. So that's for the emotional and the thought process, okay? Then we might talk about nutrition. What type of food might be related to your pain? Again, allergies and reaction to specific food, that's very unique. And I will not say don't eat this or don't or eat that. I will never say that on my podcast. That being said, we can still all agree that I can share with you very general guidelines that might help you. Example, eating more fruits and vegetables in a very general manner will help you have more fiber and probably feeling healthier in general. That is just like overwhelming data in science shows that. So if we start working on things that are at first hand, they might look boring or they might look not very sexy. Well, guess what? They work. So why? Let's make it sexy. Let's make it nice and fluffy and whatever you need to stick to it. But I still want to reinforce this message over and over. Then we're going to talk about stress. Stress is a big one because it not only stress can be manifest in your body, in your mind, in your emotion, but also clearly has a link with your level of pain and how you perceive pain. So we're going to talk about specific tools and behaviors that you can use to better manage your pain and hopefully, better manage your stress. And hopefully this is going to help your pain levels. We're going to talk about light, how important it is to go outside regularly during the day, to be exposed to light, how it is maybe a good idea also to be limiting some type of light at some specific time of the day. All of those things are going to be, of course, interconnected with your sleeping patterns. And that's the next bubble. How you sleep is your capacity to recover, and how you recover. Of course, if you can't recover, well, no wonder why perhaps you're a little bit hurt. And now maybe you start to already connect the dot and like, okay, if I'm stressed and if I'm lack of sleep, well, I feel like a bit more pain. Well, ta-da, you can see all of those things are interconnected. So hopefully after listening to this podcast, you'll be able also to recognize at some point, okay, what's my priority right now? What's the first domino I need to hit that will help everything else? And that's how I try to work with my clients. I try to tell them, okay, all of your lifestyle right now looks like it's not working for you. What's the one thing we can start with that will really get you forward? Is it working on your sleep? Is it because you're completely stressed at work right now? Is it you eat like junk food every single meal? So we try to focus on this one thing that will help you at first to get you going, that you will be able to make the most progress. And of course, we're going to be talking about this social side of it. How does relationship impact your level of pain? And that's a very new, interesting topic, because we'll see that, yes, indeed, the people that we are around, how we communicate, how we interact with other people, all of that is going to influence our pain. How crazy this is. So hopefully this gives you a little bit more light on what the podcast is going to be about, like what to expect. So of course, if you're listening to this first episode and like, hey, that's not what I thought it would be, then that's it. That's not for you. But if you are someone who is curious and who is really determined to say, hey, I've been in pain for some time and I want to get this done, then stick around. We're going to go diving deep into specific topics, and every single episode, hopefully you'll be able to try new things, and hopefully those new tools will be able to help you feel better. And of course, if you're a healthcare professional who is also listening, well, guess what? All of this for you is free. Please use it, make the world better, make people feel better. On that note, I will see you in 2 weeks, or perhaps at the episode 2 of the Internal Compass podcast. And on that note, I tell you, be pain free.